Hello everyone, thank you for signing in and watching my live stream. I'm Mr. Matt and this is Dr. Tot. Dr. Tot, do you want a cookie? You want a cookie to start class? Very good. And welcome to Algebra 2. Today's the live stream 2, session 2 of 3. And last session we got into factoring when a is equal to 1. Remember the standard form of a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. And so when a is equal to 1, factoring is a little bit more straightforward. We're really just looking for two factors of the c value that add together to get the b value. When a is not equal to 1, so like just for example, 2x squared plus 3x plus 4 is equal to 0. The leading coefficient of 2 is attached to the x squared variable, so that represents the coefficient of a. A in this example is not equal to 1. It's not equal to 1. So the factoring is a little bit less straightforward. Instead of considering the factors of just c, we have to consider the factors of a times c and then do a little bit of adjustment at the end to make sure that it all works out. Let me share my screen with you and then we'll get started. Just a reminder, these are live sessions, so, oops, and my screen is not connected. 1 second. So sorry. But I was going to say these are live sessions, so there's a little bit of a delay. But if you have any questions at any point, then please just let me know. You can post the question in the live chat feed, or you can drop a comment below if you're watching the recording. And that should be showing up right about now. There we go. So for a more detailed overview of factoring when a is equal to 1, I would recommend looking at the stream number 1 that we did on Monday. I'm going to go right into the more complex factoring form when a is not equal to 1. I find this is where students have a lot of trouble and get a little bit more confused. So if this is all set equal to 0, now if we're going to factor, what we do is we write out two set of parentheses and break the first squared variable into two variables raised to the first power in the left position of each parentheses. So I'm just going to write out two sets of parentheses like this, and this is set equal to 0. The coefficients of these values are factors of a that the factors in the right position can be evenly divided by. Look for two factors of a times c that add together to get the b value and distribute the factors in the right position of each set of parentheses. Then we're going to adjust the factors to work with the coefficients of the a value distributed in the left positions. Remember that we can always use foiling to check that we did the right procedure and that our answer is valid. And actually, let me decrease my camera size here so you can see a little bit more of my screen. Okay, so what all that means, that was a whole bunch of nonsense. So we're going to consider two different things. Two factors. We're going to consider the factors of our a value, and we're going to consider the factors of a times c. So our a value here is 15. A times c is going to be 15 times 6. That's going to be 90. And actually, let me move these around a little bit so I have more space. So, the factors of 15 start with 1 in the number, are 1 and 15. 15 is not divisible by 2, so I can skip over 2 on the left-hand side of the list. Then I'm going to go to 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Notice that I've arrived at a condition in which there's only one whole number in between those last two factors. The only whole number between 3 and 5 is 4, and I know that 15 is not divisible by 4. Therefore, I know that I've considered an exhaustive list of all the factors of 15. That might seem a little bit needless in this case because 15 only has 2 pairs of factors, but when we get to 90, 90 is going to have quite a few. So let's go ahead and look at 90. So starting with 1 and 90, then we're going to have 2 and 45, 3 and 30. We're going to have 4 and 18, I believe. Let me just check that. No, that's not right. 90 is not divisible by 4. 5 and 18, that's what I was thinking of. So 90 divided by 5 is 18. 6 and 15. Yep. 90 is not divisible by 7. 90 is not divisible by 8. 90 is divisible by 9, and that's going to be 9 and 10. So we're looking for 2 factors of A times C that add together to get B. Well, B here is -9. So notice that 6 and 15, if we had a -15 and a +6, that would add together to get a -9. But I need to make sure that I pick A values that work with the A times C values. So notice that 3 and 5 work well with 6 and 15 because 6 is divisible by 3 and 15 is divisible by 5. So I'm going to be able to adjust them very easily because they're directly divisible by each other. They go into each other a whole number of times. So I'm going to assign the positions on the left that are going to have a variable next to them. So let me just go ahead and write in the variable x. And then I basically have 2 positions, a left position and a right position. The left position is going to be the coefficient, the coefficient of the x values. And so those are the A values here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm stuck with those. I have to pick 3 or 5 or 1 and 15. So you have, because in order to get an A value of 15. So you have to assign the left positions first based on the A values, the factors of A. Then you go to your A times C values and you have 6 and 15. Remember in foiling, it's really the outer and the inner products that are going to combine together to get that B value. So you need to make sure that the inner and the outer positions work together. You do that by matching up the values that are directly divisible with each other. So 15 is divisible by 5, so I'm going to put the 15 over here. 6 is divisible by 3, so I'm going to put the 6 on the right-hand side. Then, in order to make sure that this works when we FOIL, because we have this extra coefficient now, the coefficients of x are not 1 any longer. Therefore, we have to adjust these values that we just inserted, 15 and 6. We need to adjust them by the value that they're going to be increased by. So 15, and let me back some of this out so it's not as messy. 15 is going to be divided by 5. 15 is going to be multiplied by 5, that coefficient of 5. So I'm going to reduce 15 by a factor of 5. So then it works out to the same B value that I originally intended. The 6 in the outer times the outer in foiling is going to be multiplied by the coefficient of 3 all the way on the left-hand side. Therefore, I'm going to reduce the 6 by a factor of 3 so that still works out appropriately. I want the 15 to be negative and I want the 6 to be positive, so it ends up as a -9. So my answer here is 3x minus 15 over 5 times 5x plus 6 over 3 is equal to 0, and that simplifies into 3x minus 3 times 5x plus 2. If I asked you to solve, we could use the principle of zero products to set each of these expressions, each of these binomials, I should say, set equal to 0, and then solve for the missing variable. So here we would add 3 to both sides and get 3x is equal to 3, so x is equal to positive 1. We could subtract 2 in the second equation to get 5x is equal to negative 2, and then divide by 5 to find that x is equal to negative 2/5. If you have any questions, then please let me know. So just remember, you have to consider the factors of a, the leading coefficient, the factors of a times c, the first coefficient, times the constant value, the third constant value. And you have to make those values or choose those values depending on which are going to be divisible with each other. And you have to massage the right hand position so it doesn't get double multiplied by the same value. Okay, so you do that by reducing it by the value it's going to ultimately be multiplied by when you FOIL out. The outer times the outer will multiply times each other, so that outer portion's coefficient of x needs to be reduced. You need to reduce the other value by that coefficient. The inner times the inner is going to multiply times each other, so you need to reduce the non-variable coefficient by, the non-variable value, the non-variable factor, the number that doesn't have an x attached to it. You need to reduce that by the coefficient attached to x that it's going to be multiplied by when you do inner times inner. I'm not going to ask you to solve for the actual x values. I'm just asking you to factor, but I just wanted to point that out. If there's any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's look at number 1. 15x squared plus 13x plus 2 is equal to 0. I'll give you 4 minutes. I'll keep track of the time in the upper right-hand corner, and I'll update it per minute. Okay, so let's look at this this question. So we have 15x squared plus 13x plus 2 is equal to 0. And I was just writing out here some hints. So we need to look at or consider factors of a and a times c. So a is equal to 15. So we're going to have 1 and 15, 3 and 5. A times c is 15 times 2, which is 30. The factors of 30 are 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. Now notice this is a little tricky because our b value is 13. So we can get 13 both from 2 and 15 if 15 was positive and 2 was negative, or from 3 and 10 if they're both positive. There's two ways to look at this. The first is pretty definitive. If you see the c value is positive, remember that the c value is the product of the last times the last. It's the constant times the constant in the binomial form when they're separated into parentheses and you have two values in each. So when you're FOILing out, the value that turns into c is the last value times the last value. In order to get a positive product, both of the numbers either have to be negative or both of them are positive. So if you have a positive c value, that means that you need either two positives or two negatives. That's only going to occur with positive 3 and positive 10 to make a positive 13. With the other factors of 2 and 15, you're going to need a positive 15 and a negative 2 in order to make that work and get a positive 13, but you can't take a positive 2, you can't multiply a positive and a negative and get a positive back in order to get a positive c value. So that's one way to understand that you need to choose 3 and 10. The other thing, the other thing to notice is that notice that 3 and 5 work really well with 3 and 10 because 3 is divisible by 3 and 10 is divisible by 5 evenly. 2 and 15 don't work with 3 and 5 and they don't work with 1 and 15. So that's another way of understanding that you need to choose 3 and 10. So we're going to break up this trinomial into two parentheses. We chose 3 and 5 as our a values, so the coefficients of a, so go ahead and assign a 3x and a 5x. Now you know that this inner value is going to be multiplied by a 5, so you're going to ultimately have to divide that inner value by a 5, whatever you substitute in. The same thing is true for the outer times the outer. That value all the way on the right is ultimately going to be multiplied by or increased by a factor of 3, because that leading coefficient all the way to the left is 3x. So I'm going to adjust whatever value I ultimately put in there by dividing it by 3. Now I need to match up what works with what. I have factors of a times c as 3 and 10 that I've chosen to work with. So 3 is divisible by 3 and 10 is divisible by 5. I want them both to be positive. 10 divided by 5 is 2, so our answer is going to be 3x plus 2. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so then we're going to have times 5x plus 1. And again, if I asked you to solve, then you would just set both of these equal to 0 and solve for x. So x in this instance would either be equal to negative 2/3 or negative 1/5. But the factored form, what I wanted you to do, I just wanted to show you that as an example if you're asked to do that in your class. But the factored form, the answer here is going to be 3x plus 2 quantity times 5x plus 1 is equal to 0. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, take a look at number 2. We have 24x squared minus 8 minus 2 24x squared minus 8x minus 2 is equal to 0. So please factor that. I'll give you 4 minutes and then I'll go through the solution. Okay, so for 24x squared minus 8x minus 2 is equal to 0, in this problem a is equal to 24. The factors of 24 are 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. The only factor, the only integer, whole number in between 4 and 6 is 5, and 24 is not divisible by 5. So I know I have all the factors here. Now a times c is going to be equal to 24 times 2, which is 48. So the factors of 48 are 1 and 48, 2 and 24. What is that divided by? Oops. 3 and 16, 4 and 12. See, 5, no, 6 and 8. And then the only number in between 6 and 8 is 7, and 48 is not divisible by 7. So we need to add together to get 8. Notice that 4 and 12, we can add together to get 8. And notice that the C value here is negative. That's indicative that the two values, the two factors, have to be opposite signs of each other. And that would work with these two factors because we could have a negative 12 and a positive 4 to give us a negative 8. Now we need to get two factors of 24 that work well with 4 and 12. So 4 and 6 look like they work pretty well. 4 is divisible by 4, 12 is divisible by 6. So I'm going to write out my two-factor parentheses. I'm going to put a 4x and a 6x. This inner value is going to be multiplied by a 6, so the inner value I'm going to decrease by 6. The outer value is going to be multiplied by that outer coefficient of 4, so I'm going to decrease it by a factor of 4. So I'm going to put the 4 with the 4, because 4 is divisible by 4. Excuse me. Yes, 4 with the 4, and then I'm going to put the 12 with the 6, because the 12 is divisible by 6. I need the 12 to be negative, and I need the 4 to be positive in order to make a negative 8. And now I just simplify. So 4x minus 12 divided by 6 is 2, times the quantity 6x plus 4 divided by 4 is positive 1. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's look at number 3. So we have 3x squared plus 4x minus 15 is equal to 0. So I'll give you 4 minutes, and then I'll go through the solution. Okay, so in 3x squared plus 4x minus 15 is equal to 0, a is equal to 3. That's pretty easy because 3 is a prime number, so it only has two factors, one in itself. A times c, however, would be 3 times 15, which is going to be 45. The factors of 45 are 1 and 45, 3 and 15, 5 and 9. And we need to add together to get 4, and our c value is negative, so we need to have opposite signs. So negative 5 and a positive 4, sorry, negative 5 and a positive 9, excuse me, would add together to get a positive 4. Looking at this, notice that 1 and 3 will work because 5 is divisible by 1 and 9 is divisible by 3. So we can break this guy up into parentheses. I'm going to put a 1x and a 3x in the right positions. I'm going to have to divide the inner by inner value by 3 because it has a coefficient of 3 on the other side. Now on the first term of 1x, that has a coefficient of 1. That's not going to affect the other value. So notice I don't need to adjust that value at all. So I'm going to have the 5 over here, and I'm going to put the 9 in the middle so it's directly divisible by the 3 that I have to reduce the value by. Now I want the 9 to be positive, and I want the 5 to be negative. And so this is going to simplify into x plus 3 times 3x minus 5 is equal to 0. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's look at number 4. We have 4x squared minus 2x minus 12 is equal to 0. I'll give you 4 minutes. And then we'll review. This will probably bring us up to the end of class today. On Friday, for Friday's lesson, we'll, or session 3, I should say, we'll go through and concentrate on the completing the square. Excuse me. 4 minutes, and then we'll go through this one. Okay, so for number 4, our a value is equal to 4. The factors of 4 are 1 and 4, 2 and 2. A times c would be equal to 4 times 12, which is 48. The factors of 48 are 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 6 and 8. I don't think 4 is divisible. No, yeah it is. 4 times 12. 4 times 12, then we'd have 6 times 8. And we need to add together to get -2, so that looks like 6 and 8. And notice that 2 and 2 will work nicely, they're both even. So I'm going to go ahead and break up 2x and 2x in the first position. I'm going to have to adjust each of those new values that I plug into the right position by a factor of 2, because my left positions have coefficients of 2. Because they're both 2, it doesn't really matter which place I put the 6 or the 8, because they're both affected by 2. I need the 8 to be negative, and I need the 6 to be positive to make a -2. And so this is going to simplify into 2x plus 3 times the quantity 2x minus 4. If we wanted to solve, we could set each of these equal to 0, so 2x plus 3 would be equal to 0, and 2x minus 4 would be equal to 0. I could subtract away 3 to find 2x is equal to -3, and so x would be equal to -3/2. I could add 4 to the second equation and get 2x is equal to 4, divide by 2 to find x is equal to 2. So if they asked us to solve, then x would be equal to -3/2, which is -1.5, or x is equal to +2. If you have any questions on anything that we've done today, then please let me know. Remember that if you find these videos helpful, then please like the stream and subscribe to my channel. I'm here for you guys every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesdays are my reading sessions, and Thursdays are my writing skills sessions. And also, if you are interested in SAT prep, I've listed my social media accounts below, my Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I only use them to post SAT questions and interact with my students. So if you have any questions at any point that you can use any help with, or if you have any recommendations for me, you can always engage in one of those forums. And I'll check out the SAT question of the day, because I'll do one new one each day on each platform, and they'll all be different. So I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And Dr. Todd, do you want to say goodbye to everybody? Come on, Dr. Todd has worked very hard today. This is his 5th class. Come on, you got to say goodbye. You got to earn your cookie. Come on. Can you say bye? Can you say bye? Yes, that's a bye. It's a half bye, huh? Yes, a good boy. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you all on Monday.